All right. So the second part of the lecture will actually build on the first part, and it will be showing some specific utilities available through SSH. First, I'd like to give you again a chance to ask questions if there's anything from the first part that you'd like to review or ask questions. Okay. So now that we have done SSH, I'll cover next utility named SCP, stands for Secure Copy. So this is based on SSH, but it does something specific, which is copying files between two computers in a secure way. That's where SSH comes into play. This SCP command or utility makes use of port 22 SSH, and therefore the file transfer between the computers is very secure. It is done within an encrypted session. So you can download or upload files using this command. So the best way is to do examples, and I hope everybody will understand. So I'll use the same two machines, client server as before. So this is my server, on which SSH, of course, is available. There's nothing to be done for that. It's available by default in CentOS. So what I'll do now, I'll first do an example of downloading a file. Let me see if I have a diagram again here, just to help understand visually. Okay, I'll make a new diagram. So we have two computers. So the bigger one will be acting as a server here. So I'll write server client. And the first example will be downloading a file from server to client. So you're working on a client machine and you'll download a file. And do a straight line here. Right. So this will be an SCP download. Meaning a file from a server will be transferred to the client in a secure way. All right? So I'll do this example now. I'll go to a client machine. So I log in as user 3 again to the server and download, let's say, the user's bashrc file from his home directory. You have seen bashrc in a previous module. It's just an example of a file. Now, where I will download it, let's make a decision here. On this machine, on the client machine, I will download it to this test1 folder, let's say. Okay, right now in test1. This is what I have. If I do ls-a to see even hidden files, this is what I have, right? I don't have bash rc. So I'll download the bash rc file of user3 into this directory test1 on the client machine. Are we following the idea? Okay. So here's the command. Now scp is a single command in which all the information will be typed. So I'm on the client machine now, and I'll type scp. And like any other copy command, you specify first the source and then the destination. Now in this case, what's the source, what's the destination? Let's go back to the diagram. It's a download I'm doing. I'm right now on the client machine. This is where I am, right? This is where we are on the client machine. So I'm doing a download. So where is the source, where is the destination? The source is the server. The destination is the client. So on the server I have the user's home directory /home /user3, and I'll download the bash rc file of the user. And the destination will be the client machine. In my example, I'm downloading it to the test1 folder. Some students get confused with this, so nothing complicated. When you copy something, there's always a source and a destination. Download means the source is the server, the destination is the client. You're sitting at the client machine. So, scp, I first type the source, which is the server. But then I also need to authenticate with the server. The server is a remote machine. So I'll type the user account user3 at the hostname or IP of the or IP of the server. If I go by hostname, it will be hockey.sports.com. So this is where SSH is. And then for the syntax, you put a colon, / and the path. In this case, home user3, and the file name, which is .bashrc. So this is the source. And now what's the destination? It's the client computer's test1 directory. So I am on a client computer, so I'll just tap test1. So it's asking for a password of user3 on the server. All right, this strange message. Let me see what happened here. I might have an idea. You know what? I'll use a different user because I think I've done some additional configuration for this user here. I'll use a different account instead of user3. I don't want to confuse you with this. So let me go on the server and check, get another account ready. So I'll use user 7 here. I'll reset the password of user 7. All right. So same idea. I'll do it for user 7. Let me clear the screen. Here we go. So have a look at the commands if there's anything that's not clear for you. So I just downloaded the file bashrc into this local test1 directory. And now if I do ls-a to see the result, so bashrc has been downloaded. So I'll see if you have any questions there. It may seem complicated, but look at it, it's in fact just understand the parts, nothing complicated in this command. Source destination. Now, can I do the same thing on the Windows machine acting as a client? It should be okay, but again, you have to use Windows 10 machine instead with that newer DVD. So it's part of SSH. So I'll do it here. I'll do the same thing here. So SCP. Now, let's decide though where it's going to go. Maybe it's going to be even clearer visually. So let's say the download I wanted to go to the directory SSH. I've created a directory called SSH here, right? This is what I have in it right now. So I'm going to put it, I'm going to get the download into this directory named SSH. I'll leave this open. And I'll type the command here, scp. So it's the exact same way. The source is the server. So bashrc. Remember, bashrc is just an example of a file, nothing special about it. You can download any files of your choice. And in destination now, how do we type destination Windows there? It will be the C drive SSH.
Sir, user 3.
Oh, I use user 3. Thank you very much. It's user 7 I have to use. I'll do Control C to stop this. So I'll put user 7. Also, I missed an R, by the way, in the command there. Here we go. See, bashrc has just got downloaded here, and it should be available now in that directory. Here we go. It just happened at, now it's 7:20 because it's on Pacific time. It's in fact 10:20. Machine time is 3 hours behind. All right, so again, look at it if you have any questions. Now, you see, normally in Windows, when you type a path, C colon, normally you put backslash, but the command being Unix-based or Linux-based, it also accepts / here. So this is a very useful and powerful command when you transfer files between computers with encryption. It's very secure. Yeah, you're right. There was misspelling there, so it's been fixed. So that's an example of a download. And now I'll also do the other part, which is uploading. So same idea. Uploading means transferring a file from the client to the server. So it goes in the opposite direction. put uppercase there. All right, now let's decide what to upload. I'll first do it again from the CentOS client. So in this test1 directory, I have, let's say, the file hba.conf. I like to upload hba.conf. And I'll upload it to the user's home directory. I'll talk more about it in a second, but let's do the command first. So here's the plan then. From test1 / test1 again, I'll upload the file hba.conf. It will go to the user's home directory on the server. Okay. So if you are download works, it should be very easy now because it's the same logic, but source and destination will be switched. That's all. So now I'll type SCP. Now the source is a local client machine. So for the source, I'll type test1 hba.conf. And then destination will be the server. And I'll log in as user 7 to the destination at IP or hostname of the server. And the rest is similar, :home/user7. That's it. So now if I check on a server the user's home directory, I see that hpa.conf got just uploaded there. See, I'm not showing the hidden files there, but here we go. So, do you have any questions on this command here, the upload command? You see in this on this screen now you see both examples, downloading and uploading. Also do it from a Windows machine, and then I'll give another important explanation that applies to both. So now I'll upload a file from Windows to the server. So in my SSH directory, I have, let's say, the file 1.bmp, that's 0 byte, okay, 2.txt, it's a text file. I'll upload it to the user's home directory on the server. So SCP, same thing. So local file now, c:/ssh 2.txt. Destination user 7 at hockey.sports.com. And I will send it to user's home directory. Okay. And it should appear now in the user home directory on the server. I'm in the home directory there. I'll do ls-a again, and now ic2.txt just appeared there. No questions? Now, there is something important to our sender here. See, the examples I did, everything worked very nicely, right? However, it's like advertising a bit. What I mean by this, let's go back to the diagram. Like for any other copy command or any other operation there, for things to work properly, you need appropriate permissions. So when you copy a file, there are two requirements there. At the source, you must have permission, at least the permission to read the file, and at the destination, you must have the permission to write, because when you're receiving or sending a file, at the destination there, you're adding a file. So you must have the permission to write. So for me, the example I used was user home folder, and it's an easy one, right? Because the user has all the permission in his home folder. So in the upload I just did now, of course, user 7 has the permission to save a file in his home directory. Otherwise, the command would fail. So this is just to show you what I mean by this. If I were to repeat the command, the last one I did here, but I put, instead of the user home directory, I put the etc directory. Permission denied. Why? Because user 7 does not have the permission to save a file in etc. So it doesn't let you copy a file there. So always realize that for any copy command to work, SCP or other, at the source you must be able to read the file, at destination you must be able to write a file. If not, and if you need to copy that file, then change permissions. We have seen that how to do in the previous module, right? CH mode. So any questions on SCP? All right, I don't see any questions, so I hope everything is clear. Now there is one more thing I'd like to add actually here. I said earlier that SCP is part of SSH, but that might not be very obvious at this point, but let me show what I mean. I'll go to the server, and I will stop the SSH server service. How do we do that? System control. You see, as it is now, if I check the status, SSH, it's SSHD actually, the service name. Put a D in the end. Stands for daemon, just like caps D, remember? So SSHD. So right now it's running, active. I'll stop the service. You see, daemon, that's where D comes from. So I'll stop it by typing stop. When you boot up a CentOS 7 machine, by the way, by default, it starts it. So now it's not running. And now I'll go back to any of the clients and try the SCP command again. You see connection refused on port 22. Port 22 is the SSH port. So you see that SCP is not a protocol by itself. It's just a command which makes use of the SSH protocol. So if I enable the service again, if I start the service I'm in, then the command will work again. I don't have to run it, but you see that it's asking for a password, so I'll just do Control-C to stop it. So one more chance for any question on SCP. Is now move on to the next subject. And the permissions for SCP. The permissions is just to set like any other copy command. Let's go back to the diagram there. Whenever you do a copy command, you need to have read permission at the source and write permission at destination. So when I did download here, it worked because user 7 had the permission to read from his home folder, and whoever was logged in here, which is root in this case, had the permission to write into test 1. When I made the upload, user 7 had the permission to write into his own folder. And again, root, who's logged on here, had the permission to read from test 1. You see, why did it say permission denied here? Because I tried to upload to etc. And user 7 does not have permissions to write into etc. So permission denied, it's not because the SCP command is bad. It's because you're trying to do something which the user does not have the permission for. So to recap once again, in any copy command, you need to have read permission at the source and write permission at destination. So move on to the next subject here, which is in fact similar, at the same time different. So now we'll talk about SFTP. It is another way to transfer files securely between two computers, and is also based on SSH. So it might seem redundant, and to a certain extent it is, but this is, I mean, we have more than one way to do things, especially because Linux is open source and different people in the world have programmed things at different times. So we have options. So SFTP, you see, FTP probably reminds you, I mean, I'm sure you've done FTP with Windows. And in fact, towards the end of this module, we will do a complete study of an FTP server with CentOS. But we're not really doing FTP right now. We're doing SFTP. Because as I'm sure you know, FTP is a protocol by itself, which is also for file transfer. It stands for File Transfer Protocol. But what we're about to see now is not the actual FTP protocol. It is a simulation of FTP using SSH. So that's why it's called SFTP. So it's something that will behave and act as FTP, but in fact, it is running through SSH on port 22. The actual port of FTP is 21, and we'll do that later. But now this is an interesting thing as well. This will give us another option of copying files securely between two computers using FTP-like commands. But again, it is based on SSH. So I'll do downloading and uploading again using this option. Following? So let's get into it. So same server and client. This diagram will be similar, but instead of SCP, it will be SFTP. So I'll start with download. Actually, you'll see it now. We're not going to use separate commands. What you do with SFTP, you just open a session, and then within that session, you can type your commands to download or upload. You'll see exactly what I mean in a moment there. So I'm on a client machine now, and I'll open my session on the server using SFTP. Again, I'll use user 7. So SFTP, let's clear the screen not to get confused. SFTP, user 7 at hockey.sports.com. Remember, it's possible to put the IP, but since we have the host file available now, I'm putting the host name. That's it. I don't type anything else right now. I just open a session. So now I'm at the SFTP prompt. I'm connected to the server using SFTP. And here is where I will type my commands. And these are FTP commands. If you remember them from Windows courses, it will be easy in this part. Okay, if I do ls, it'll show me what's available now on the server. And it shows the user's home directory because I logged in as user 7. These are the files I uploaded previously to the home folder. If I do ls-a, I will see all the files. So now, 2.txt was a file which was uploaded from Windows to the server, right? So I will download this file, 2.txt, to this client CentOS machine. And I'll download it again to the test1 directory. So for that, what we do, we first use the lcd command. LCD will let you specify the local directory on a client machine. So test1, it means any downloads will go to this directory. And now use the get command to download. So get 2.txt. So where did it go? It went to the test1 directory. And to see that, I may open another terminal I'm on a client machine, of course. Well, on this one, it will be hard. All right. Sorry. I think I closed the terminal. It's back. I accidentally closed the terminal. Here we go. All right, so what I'll do, I'll exit this temporarily, and I'll show where the file got downloaded. So exit. And if I go, I'm in test 1. So if I do ls, here we go. I just got to .txt here as a result of the download. So see any questions on this example now? You see all the commands here. I did the SFTP command, connect to the server, and then I use the LCD command to choose my local directory on the client machine, and then get with the file name. It downloads the file. It goes into the LCD directory test 1. Any questions on this one? So now I'll do an upload. So this time I'll upload the file host.allow, this one here. So from test 1 of the client, I will upload this file to the user's home directory on the server as this host.allow. So I'll redo an SCP command. Let's clear the screen. So again, I'll choose my LCD as test 1. So when you do ls here, it shows what's on the server in user's home directory. So right now, this is what I have on user's home directory. And now I will upload host.allow. So the upload will go from test 1. So I already did LCD test 1. So the command to upload is put host.allow. So what happens when I type this command? It checks the LCD directory to see if there's a file named host.allow there, and it uploads it to the server. So now if I do ls -a again, I see that the file got uploaded there. And of course, you can also check it on the server itself directly. I'm in the user's home directory here, and if I do ls, host.allow got uploaded there. Any questions on this one, uploading using SFTP? Actually, I'll stay for a moment. Right, I don't see any questions for now. Now, I'd also like to show you that with SFTP, you may do multiple download or uploads at once, meaning not only one file at a time, but you can do multiple files at once. Example here. Let me see in test one what I have there. I'll exit this for now, and I'll come back in a moment. So exit. You know, I'll pick another directory because I've been working this one. Let's say I go to let's see what's in test itself. cd test. All right, I have many files here. You see, I have many files here that start with the character A, a large number of files. So let's say I like to upload all of them at once to the user's home directory on the server using SFTP. All the files start with character A. So I'll open a session again. So this time I'll choose my LCD as test. And to upload multiple files at once, usemput instead of put. M for multiple. And what I'll type here now is A asterisk. What does this mean? It means any files that starts with character A. Followed by asterisk means the rest of the file name could be just anything. The only requirement is that the first character should be A. You see, all those files got uploaded now. And when I do ls now, see all those files have been uploaded to the user's home directory. So here are again the commands in case you missed something. And in the same way, you may also download multiple files at once by using mget. Just as I used mput, and previously I used the get command to download, you may use the mget command to download multiple files at once with the same logic. All right, so any question on this part? Multiple files. You may also use SFTP from the Windows client, same way. I'll just show opening session there. I'm not going to repeat all the commands, but from Windows, I will just tap SFTP. Just once you connect, it's the exact same commands as previously shown. So if I have to choose my LCD here, I'll type LCD. Let's say C again, SSH. Okay, that's the way to type the path in Windows. And then you can use the get or put commands or mget mput with the exact same syntax. And just like in the case of SCP, it is also SSH based, meaning if I stop the SSH protocol on a server, SFTP will not work. So let's show that. On the server, yeah, you have to control it. So here's the server, and I'll again stop SSHD. And then from any of the clients, if I try opening an SSH session, SFTP session, I mean, it fails because now port 22 has been closed. All right, Tam, we're going to check if you have any questions. I'll pause a few seconds here. Think of any questions you might have. All right, so let's see again the lecture notes. All right, now I already have a lab report question here for lab report number 1, question 1. So you know what I'll do? I'll just change the detail because I just demonstrated multiple files for the upload. I'll ask you to download multiple files. So it's a simple question. I hope you'll do it today. I'll talk about tomorrow because tomorrow will be busier. So question number 1 on first lab report here, it is to use SFTP to download multiple files at once between 2 CentOS computers. Can't get any simpler than this for a lab report question. All right, I demonstrated for the upload. I still have it there See, this was input uploading multiple files at once. And I mentioned here that you use mget to download multiple files at once. So this is what I'm asking you to do as a lab report question. Using mget to download multiple files at once from the server to the client. So make sure on the server in your home directory, you have many files that start with a common character, and then you'll download them all at once using mget to the client. Is the question clear? So your screenshots, of course, should include opening the SFTP session and then the details of your commands there up to and including the output of the mget command. Tomorrow I'll give you a second question. The date is as usual. The submission time, just like we did the past module, there should be Monday, and you get a second question tomorrow. So do this today, guys, because tomorrow will be actually busier, because tomorrow we'll definitely go into DNS. I have my next part of the lecture with DNS here. I'll introduce it today. Tomorrow will be quite busy doing a lab on DNS. So don't leave this for tomorrow. Do this simple lab question today, save your screenshots, so that tomorrow we can work on DNS. So to recap on what we did today so far, we started by pinging between computers. Then by IP and by host name. So it's important to know how to use the host file. Actually, that should be mentioned because I took it for granted, but I write it here. In the lab report question there, it must be done by host name, not by IP. So use two CentOS computers and then use the host name in the SFTP command. So this one is to make sure that you also practice the host file. All right, so we did ping by IP and by host name. We did telnet, which is also important to practice. It's not in lab report, but this may be, who knows, maybe in the exam later in the module. So practice telnet as well, as we did before the break today. And this was using the Linux client and Windows client. Then we did SSH itself to open the remote session. And for the Windows 10 client, for this you'll need the new version of Windows 10. So you can easily install one today in the laptop if you don't have one, using that new version of DVD. I'll show you in a moment again which DVD I was talking about. So that Windows 10 DVD does provide the built-in SSH client feature. Then also practice SCP. Again, the lab reports about SFTP, but in the exam you might get an SCP question later. And SFTP. So I'll show again a DVD for Windows 10. So it's in the ISO folder, and I use this DVD here, the one that says Pro Enterprise EDU 1803. And in the menu, you can use the professional version because it gives you in the menu many choices there. So I use professional. All right, so again, if you have any questions at this point. So you know what I'll do remaining time today? I have a good idea because I'll leave DNS for tomorrow. See, my next part of the lecture here is about DNS, and that's a huge subject, very important. I'll leave it for tomorrow so that we don't cut it in parts and But now this is a good opportunity. We have a bit of time left here. It's a good opportunity to show you how to configure an IPv6 in CentOS because we'll be using IPv6 starting with DNS. Now, I believe you have already studied the basics of IPv6 in Windows. Whenever necessary later on, you can also do quick reviews or provide more details. But now, assuming you know what an IPv6 address looks like, I'll just show you how to configure an IPv6 in CentOS. I don't think we have done this in previous module, right? If I'm mistaken, let me know, guys, because I teach too many classes. It happens sometimes that I get a bit confused between what I've done with which class. But I don't think in module 1 I covered IPv6, did I? I'm not done, thank you. Yeah, I was pretty sure, but just in case, So, you see, this machine here already has IPv6. If I have config, you see, it shows here on 88.0, inet6, A6:::20. This is version 6 IP. Also, this is a version 6, but when you start with FE80, this is what's referred to as a link local, which is the result of auto configuration. Initially, the machine gave itself this IP, but when you configure an IP yourself, then the auto-configured one, link local, becomes irrelevant, even though it still shows it, but you can ignore it. So this is the IPv6 I have configured. I'll show you in a moment how to do it. And it says prefix length 64. This is the mask. What does this mean? As you know, probably an IPv6 is made of 128 bits, and the prefix length 64 means that the first 64 bits represent the network ID, and the last 64 bits represent the host ID. So this is, in a way, the mask. So to configure this, you go to the network configuration folder. So we have seen it, of course, in etc sysconfig. network scripts. And you edit your IFCFG file. And you see towards the end there, I've added the IPv6. So basically you need only 2 lines now, these 2 that you need to add. So under, see, gateway we'll see later, don't worry about gateway. So under your IPv4, you just add these 2 lines. So IPv6 ADDR, you type the IPv6 address, and then prefix equals 64 for the mask. Very simple. So take notes of this, the commands, the lines. Of course, after you do it, you restart your network adapter, IF.IFL. So this was on a machine already configured with it. Now I will show it on another computer. See, I'll leave it open here. Any questions? So I'll go to my other machine, which I don't think has it at this point, and I'll configure it there. See, this is the machine I used in the previous module, and when I do ifconfig, it does not have IPv6. You see, it has the link local auto configuration, but I will now configure my own IPv6 address on it. So, and so that's it. I will add, see, this is what your file will look like when you open it. And then right under the IPv4 prefix, you add the same lines as I've shown there. So IPv6 ADDR, uppercase. Now I'll put in the same network range, right? So that they can ping they will be able to ping each other. So you have A6 is the network range, the first half of the IP. So I'll keep it A6 here. I'll change the host part. I'll put 4.0 instead of 2.0. And the prefix, the same as well, 64. That's the mask. That's it for now. So I'll save this, and then I'll do IF down, IF up. And IF config again. And now it shows the freshly configured IPv6 address. Trying to get rid of this here. Here we go. It's important this semester in this module, studying this module, because in many cases with network service, they will also do examples with IPv6. Remember, IPv6 is the future of IP addressing. In coming years, it will become more and more important. It's already in use out there, but it will become more dominant. Yes, I'll show the file again. So these are the 2 lines I added there. Now, of course, you'll be able to verify that 2 machines will ping each other using IPv6. Now, for that, first, let's think about a firewall again. You see, earlier when I said use IP tables minus F, this one applies to the firewall in IP version 4 only. This will not affect IP version 6. So in order to make sure that nothing will be blocked in IPv6, you also run IP6 tables. So each one has its own version, all right? So this is IP6 is only for IPv6. If you don't put 6 there, it's for IPv4. So when you're using both versions of IP, you need to run both commands. Now the same thing on the other machine because they will ping each other. So IP6 tables minus F as well. And then when you ping between 2 machines there, the ping command in Linux applies only to IPv4. So if I try to do ping A6 : 20, which is the IP of the other machine, see, it doesn't work. But all you have to do is to put ping 6. Okay. Of course, you don't need to type IP6 tables minus F every time. Just do it when you reboot your machine. I mean, well, as long as it's there, it stays as it is. And don't forget, when you reboot, you do need to type again IP tables minus F and IP6 tables minus F. All right, we're close to finish this lecture, just a couple of more things. Now, what about getting also the Windows machine to participate in IPv6? So I'll go ahead and add an IPv6 on Windows as well. So Internet Protocol version 6. Well, I have one already, and I'll change it because if I leave it like this, it's a different network range. So instead of C5, I'll put A6 the same way as the other two machines. It's A6 there, right? So A6 is the net ID I'm using. And here it's colon 85. And the prefix again is 64. So I'll verify by typing ipconfig. Here we go. And now in Windows, there is no ping 6. The same command ping works in both versions. So ping any of the other two machines, A6 colon 40, for example. Here we go. And from any of the CentOS machines, I should be able to ping the Windows machine now. But here you type ping 6. So A6 colon 85. Clear enough? Any questions on IPv6? Yeah, the thing is, good point there, but this is like an exception. Even in Linux there, the IPv6 itself, when you type it in the command prompt there, is not case sensitive. Lowercase or uppercase is okay. But in the network configuration file, it's the commands were, the lines are uppercase. But when you type the IP in the command prompt, you can use lowercase. Now one more thing, and it will be the end of today's material, and this will be a good way to wrap it up. I'd like to ping by hostname using IPv6, using the host file. So I just ping the Windows machine by its IP here. What I'll do now, I'll open my host file on this machine. Well, you know what? In this machine, the host file is quite crowded. I'll go to my newer machine, the one I've been using the previous module here. So from here as well now, I can of course ping the Windows machine by its IP. And now I'll use the host file so that I'll be able to ping it by a host name. So it's the same host file. The host file fully supports IPv6. So and it works the same way. So I'll type the IPv6 on the left. So A6 colon 85. And you see in IPv4, the Windows machine name is admin.win10.com. I'll put admin6.win10.com. By the way, what is this here? Colon 1. This is the loopback of IPv6. Just as 127 is a loopback of IPv4. And now I'll ping 6, admin6, .win10.com. So I'll add this to my lecture notes as well. Should have time to practice it as well. It's simple, adding and verifying IPv6. So you know what to practice today, including the first lab report question, but also everything else we have done. As usual, I will post this file just a little bit later in Teams there. And before I end the lecture now, do you have any questions? I'd like to mention once again, don't miss tomorrow's lecture. In fact, you should not miss any lectures, but the one tomorrow is particularly important. It's crucial because we'll start doing DNS tomorrow. And unfortunately, every time I teach this course, there are students in the class who don't take it seriously. I hope it won't happen this time. But DNS is something that affects everything else in networking. So if you don't get it right starting tomorrow, then it will be really a problem for you for the rest of the semester. Don't neglect it tomorrow. Don't say I'll do it later, or it's extremely important because a lot of things that we'll do later will completely depend on DNS. So tomorrow, that will be our priority, explaining and practicing DNS. And probably will not finish it tomorrow, we'll continue next week, but the basics will be done tomorrow. That's why I'm saying don't fall behind. Do this lab report question today, practice everything else we did today, so that tomorrow we can fully focus on DNS. Tomorrow's material was relatively simple. Today's material. Okay, no questions now? Now, one more thing I'd like to mention is only for a few of you. There are a number of students who joined this class today, and there are 5 of you. I'm not sure if everybody's there now, but there are 5 students who I got a notice late yesterday, late in the afternoon, that you're about to join, and I sent the request to IIT for your computer numbers this morning. So it might not be, I'm not sure if it's done already, but I'll make sure that Ankit and Sahid will know those numbers, and in case you have any problems in the afternoon, you'll get some help. I'm talking about RDP computer access. And remember that if you have any RDP problems, the best thing is to contact the IT services directly. I'll type again their email here. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, I'm done for today. And so tomorrow, 8:30 as usual, and we'll meet right away in the morning tomorrow, we'll start DNS.